And actually, some of you might have noticed so far that if you learn all the great stuff. For example, in my lecture, I only tell about the nice things, machine learning, artificial intelligence, it's so nice and great, and everyone says, that's so good, so nice, yeah? And then you think, I'm going to be a millionaire with that, yeah? And then when you start an internship or even a full-time position, and then, it's the completely opposite, And, we're here. Perfect. So, there is this gap, and this gap is not new. It's just now transferred to data science. And for example, the field where I did my PhD 20 years ago was something very similar. It was decision science. And what I also try to do sometimes is to combine these fields, because this is what's missing, in my opinion, sometimes in data science. And this is missing because people at university learn it from a completely non-business perspective. You just think, okay, I have the greatest and Google and the Mars mission and lots of flying cars and go, yeah? And you forget that, those people that pay you money, just want you to make more money. Yeah, you have to bring the company more money than they pay you. Otherwise, they wouldn't pay the money to you, of course. Yeah, so that's the point, And there is really a gap between, doing all this fun part and making money with it. And this is some kind of gap where I think first I want to really congratulate this Data Science Society for pulling this off and for having such a nice people and for doing exactly what I think is important to do. To talk about this gap, more or less know how to handle this gap, how to overcome the problems that might be caused here. And there are just some ideas I'd like to talk about, not for too long. But first of all, those who know me, see many faces I know. Please everyone take out your mobile phone and browse to. Not here. Browse to www.menti.com and enter. There you're supposed to enter a code which is 904205, and then please either give me a thumb up or a thumb down. Should reflect your current state of feelings. And once we have already one here, very good. Once we have about 20 or 30, okay, we have 3, very good. And everyone happy so far? 5, come on. Menti.com and then enter this code. Okay, we are already. So just menti.com and enter the code. Do it. Okay, we are already at reaching 30. Now we can do something useful. What I see data science experts on various things, but for some reason there is a problem, because for everything people pay money. They also want to know what for do we pay money. So we really also need to define, tell us what is data science. So now you're supposed to enter 3 keywords. What is data science for you? Everyone enter 3 keywords on what is data science. And let's see. If everything works out, a beautiful word cloud appears, and we see what you think about data science. What we, as a group here, think about it. I still see some persons without a mobile phone. Yeah, fun, investment, transform. Okay, 6, 7, more, we need more. Buzzword, this is good. Calculus, very interesting. Profit, really, okay. Predicting global, fun, money, Statistics, money. Maybe I should have started this before talking, because it seems a bit biased from what I said so far. But still, we have statistics, insights, data analysis. Okay, but still, we see. Now, let's see. There is you want to sell this field. Could we sell this? it's money, but it's fun, work, information. That's the problem. Yeah? So actually, this definition thing is really a problem, which also does not help right now regarding this gap we are talking about. Yeah. So this is also something which the data science society should really do. And then there is an even more problematic definition, which is, I mean, we see this data science itself is a problem. But please, now on the next enter the three attributes you would attribute to something that is a data scientist. Let's see what's happening. And what I was already teaching for 3 hours today, I'm already a bit. Future hipster, crazy, smart, logical thinking hipster, Hochreiter. But you might probably mean Sepp Hochreiter. We are already at nerd, and we have sexy here. Rich, logic, curious. Okay. So still, and you see from these smart nerd. From these answers, we already know that's probably exactly again what I was talking about. There is a gap, because these people paying for something. It's nice, intelligent and Hochreiter next to each other. Great, perfect. Anyway, so let's get back to my slides if I find them. Wait. There it is. Okay. I called just put a random title here, which is actually called The Wonderful World of the Non-Existing Species Data Scientist. Because that's a real question. Is there something like a data scientist? Can it be, or at least, is there a problem between this gap between academia and industry? And how can we overcome this? And I think this is where the data science society should really put lots of focus on, and you should work together to convince companies. So I'm really happy to be the opener of this kickoff session, and I just want to talk about this general problem, exactly this problem. Because I learned it by heart from already my time as a student and young assistant in decision science, where exactly the same problems were alive. And there's one thing, I'm teaching this stuff, most of you know, but what we tried, or what one thing is, and this is something where if you want to go from play to full-time dollars, actually you need to be somewhat a domain expert. And this is exactly the field, the problems I transferred over from decision science, that just because you think you know all these cool Google, Facebook and Zalando methods, you can do everything. Give me a problem, I'll solve it for you. I'll do you 99.999% accuracy, and all your business problems will be solved. But unfortunately, people figured out that this is not the case. You could say this 2 years or even last year, but now it's not. It gets harder and harder to just play around and get lots of dollars. Unfortunately, you weren't quick enough yet. But it's still. Of course, there's still room for money to be made. But the point is to learn how, and this is first to understand the real problems of the company, and second, to accommodate for that. Yeah, to learn how to learn to talk together. How can we get this play and this full-time dollar gap together? What we try to do, for example, at WU, is doing getting more into this field by being pretty specific. And we said, okay, we are at WU, we do finance. And that's why, for example, we have this Academy of Data Science and Finance, where we said, okay, we don't want to pretend we can do everything, but we want to use our domain knowledge, our specific domain knowledge of quantitative finance, and just specialize on that, to be to be a bit that people believe you, because of course, if you are this hipster guy and you're the artificial intelligence hipster, then it's still possible that you can sell those people everything, yeah? Because they think that you're so genius, they pay a 6-digit figure just to get your standard deep learning algorithm, this 20 lines you have to type. But other than that, they slowly figure out that it's really important to have this domain knowledge. And what we, for example, do is we try to adapt to the communities. For example, one of the workshops I'd like to do is something I call Cigar and Finance, which is a mixture between where you taste cigars and also learn about R in the domain of finance, because you have to pick up the persons where they come from. Yeah? Because if you're too weird and you serve these banksters avocado toasts, yeah, they might think, okay, what should I do with that? Yeah, I don't eat that stuff. Yeah, bring me my oysters and bring me my cigar, and that's the point. Yeah, so exactly. To also one thing of this gap is to really be able to talk the language of the domain you really want to work with. That's how I usually introduce myself. Most of you know. Well, it's a drunken guy. But this is such a huge. This is a picture from Professor Savage from Stanford University. Most of you know this picture. But those that don't know it, this is one of the most important pictures. You have to if you get everything what I was talking about, you should remember this picture, because it tells you the real problems with not only decision science but also with data science, because it's something where getting the data for decisions right is much more difficult than you think, especially when you are here, because we'll get to this point, but the thing is, when you play around, you mostly do everything by yourself. You do the whole chain from getting the data, processing the data, doing machine learning by yourself. But of course, once you're in this not that funny and right now even more not funny area of having to earn money with that, you get some data, and this data is probably rubbish. And what people do is they base decisions on completely wrong data. And this is the case for this drunken guy. He comes home from some kind of disco, completely drunken in the morning, and unfortunately comes to the street. And he's walking this white path. And we just have to understand whether this guy is alive or not. And now, it depends really where, for example, this expectation operator is, and where our decision operator is. I mean, it sounds stupid, but this happens quite often. That some people say, okay, no, we do our data science and we do everything and put it into your decision environment. Yeah? So, and then what's sometimes happening is that that these data science methods probably, or even the pre-processing methods, there are some expectation operators inside which we don't even see, but we have a nice model and put it in the decision model, and then we see if we ask, is this person alive given the expectation of his position? Of course this person is alive, because if we take a look at the expectation of the path he's walking, he's exactly walking in this middle part. But if we integrate data and decision and put more or less things like data processing out of the decision processing, and we ask, is this person alive on each and every data point, and then just average over that, then of course we know what's really happening, because if he's not hit by that car, at least he's hit by this blue car. And this sometimes this is happening if you're in companies, for example, in data warehouses. You know, there you have some 17-dimensional data cube, and that gets you say as a data scientist, I want to do this super cool deep learning stuff, and I need this and that data. And then they say, okay, and you say, I need this and that attributes, and they say, okay, we'll get that for you. And then out of this 17-dimensional data cube, they give you this 5-dimensional data cube on which you might do the perfect model. But it doesn't make any sense, because it's already so weird, this data, that you can't really, that the decision you take is completely wrong. So, what is a data scientist? You know, this classical two definitions. The one, that professional that uses scientific methods to liberate and create meaning from raw data. Or the other, a person that's better at statistics than any software engineer and better at software engineering than any statistician. Let's say there is no data scientist. But you may ask, but the industry and all the companies, true. HR, the data scientist is most existing in the heads of HR, because they would love to hire millions of data scientists. Yeah? And they do it by writing job advertisements. It's really this. You can summarize that as a surreal collection of buzzwords. And most of the time, they just it seems they browse, for example, to all the Apache open source projects, put everything in, and this is exactly the problem. It's far too broad. So what they want from you is that you even assemble by hand your HPC racks, install and maintain all the software, to of course build all these artificial intelligence systems, be it whatever it is. Then build front ends for the web access, and then also build some mobile apps. Yeah? And do that, and then you get your 45,000 Yeah? If you want to do that, call me first. We get this money for you, definitely. 48 is okay too. Anyways, but the problem is data science is here. It means data science is more or less this data scientist is more or less a meta description of course, someone who does this wonderful field and works in this area. But we shouldn't forget this gap. There is really something that some people, if you do this machine learning, artificial intelligence from an academic perspective, it really cares whether you get 99.98 accuracy or 99.99. You win this competition, because this is also a problem, that these Kaggle competitions sometimes, I mean, that's an overfitting exercise. Yeah? Who's the best overfitter that wins? I mean, they try to smoothen that out a bit, but still it's overfitting. Yeah? It's exactly what's one of the worst things for practical proposals, and that's why if you come back to the finance industry, that's why there are so few models that actually work, because in many areas this overfitting stuff still works, but for example it does not in the very strange field of finance. So this is something where this gap is really bad in having this thing that here you're the hero if you're overfitting, and here you get fired. Okay, and it's really funny because companies, for example, last year I was invited to a bank, and they said initially they wanted deep learning. They said we want to get into deep learning. I said, okay, let's talk to them how to get them into deep learning. And then they said, after a short discussion, we figured out deep learning, they don't care about deep learning, they need data scientists. How should they get data scientists? Maybe I can provide some from VU, yeah, now that we have the specialization. I said, yes, that's a good idea. But there is another thing, and this is also something which you should always consider. I told them, this was based on a JP Morgan study from 2017. I'll get back to this later. And there, this main suggestion from this JP Morgan report is about retraining your own stuff, because they do have so many good persons, and teaching them, empowering those with machine learning stuff that was really successful. We just did 5 half days of teaching them really hardcore machine learning and artificial intelligence, made some internal hackathons, and it worked out. Everyone was happy. Now, most of those guys are really artificial intelligence experts, but they also know what they are really doing within their company. And this is what JP Morgan said. It's by far easier and more promising to teach a domain expert AI methods than to convince an AI expert to also accept that the respective domain has its own differences. And this is also something, but this is also not I mean, this is what JP Morgan says, and this is what's happening. But this is what you should always keep in mind. But this is why I love to have this stuff at WU, data science at WU. There are still, I mean, you know that now, but most of you. But for example, there are people that say, "Oh, why shouldn't I go to at WU? And we are not so technical, and our mathematical knowledge is missing. And those TU students, they are so much better." Probably not. I mean, okay, there are some of them too. His students are probably even better than you, but other than that, yeah. What's missing? Most of this rather technical approach is exactly what we don't need, and what you don't need if you want these dollars. And this is also in relation to what Halvarian, this chief visionary of Google, already had in 2009. And what he said is, to understand data, process it, extract value, visualize it, and communicate it is the important thing. That means understanding and communicating. And that's at WU, that's the point. You know how to do this. First understand and then communicate. And you just learn that, and then you can do everything. Most artificial intelligence gurus are just doing this. They're just processing. And then what they call extracting value is actually just overfitting. And this is not what you really need to actually get the dollars. And I've heard from a guy from a bank told me, they always thought that their artificial intelligence gurus, they are so intelligent. And then they figured out, for some reason, they wanted to know, and just made a small exercise. Yeah, so they just put them. I mean, they could do everything, and PhD in physics and whatsoever. Yeah. And then they got an exercise which they had a data science exercise, which they had to read, understand, and implement. They completely failed and were fired. So actually, this whole process is the thing that you should be able to. And this is one thing to always accept, to understand, and also to focus on when creating new things. And again, what I said, this optimization under uncertainty in the 90s, what I did, this was the same. People that did it, that this method's still great, but it's almost impossible to directly integrate it into business processes, because to do it properly, you had to be an expert in so many different fields. In the end, you would have to have a PhD in econometrics for being able to estimating and fitting multivariate time series models. You would have to be an expert there. You need to have expert knowledge in measure theory and functional whatsoever, high maths. Here you had to be an applied mathematician, being able to understand model optimization models, but a completely different type of mathematician than here. And here you would have to have a PhD in actually business integration, which was impossible. But still, people had the idea they can do everything, but it never got translated to business. And the point is, it's also in data science. What do you have to do, or what do you have to accept? That if we are in this dollar world, yeah, we have to split the data science production chain. And for example, there are different types of split, but this is important to find yourself exactly where you are in the split. For example, there's something, and each position, each part is very interesting and very cool, but you shouldn't believe that you can do everything. But for example, there are so-called data curators that are collecting, cleaning, indexing, storing, and adjusting data. And of course, this has also always be in relation to the field you're working with. If you're doing this for a bank, it's completely different than doing this for an insurance company. So you might be a good data curator for a bank, but you mightn't be for an insurance company. So then there are these feature analysts. Then we are already in a field where I know some of you are really very talented. So having just transforming raw data into signals, which might provide information, which might have prediction power. This is actually what we do when we apply machine learning methods and things like this. But this is unrelated to the strategists. because this is where I say we need to have this link between decision science and data science, because just because you are able to take this properly processed data and create signals, it doesn't mean that you can really integrate it into a kind of decision process and create a strategy. So that's a different position where you transform these signals in some way. So actually you browse through this list of, to the library even, of these signals, and create a complex business strategy by just putting together these things. Of course, you could do both, but actually, splitting that is even better. And then, of course, when we do have a strategy, it doesn't make sense to just test it, for example, on historical data. Then there is this field of persons that say, okay, now we do have something, now we do have signals that we integrate into our decision process, but how can we test it? Where are the weaknesses probably of our models? And evaluate that. And this is also some kind of completely different field than those that actually just do the strategy. And then another thing, this whole deployment stuff, which you shouldn't, which I hope which you only should do if you really love to do that. Yeah? But really just integrating in production, on production level, what people figured out is perfect. And in the end, if you take a look at, if you split it into these 5 positions, it might be that one person might be able to do more than one of these fields properly in a way that someone pays money. Yeah, always. It's not that you are able to do everything. Most of those I know are able to do everything by themselves, but not at the quality where someone pays, let's say, 80,000 euros per year for you. But you are able to do one of these things, or at max 2. And this is what you should accept, and this is what you should say, okay, this makes sense. Because actually, if we really integrate it, also in companies, what they figure out, data science can only work if we do it like organized as a research lab. But still, including hard work. Yeah? A research atmosphere, but something not just where you sit like at university and you think, oh, that's a great idea, and if you don't have a great idea, you just go home. But rather than having this just a research progress is like a factory, which is hard work, but still nice to do. And let's just some suggestions for companies, but this is something what they have to work out. What's really important still, even if you do a strict research environment, keep all the IT project management out of it. This is an important thing, and I think this is what you should, as a society, especially should convince people to have to tell people, no, it's not like at university where people, if they don't have an idea, just go home. It's like we have a research lab, we have a research factory, but we won't definitely do it like IT project management. And that's what's important, that the data science group, more or less this data science research factory, should in the end only be responsible to the uppermost board. And yeah, this is, I think, this is one of the important part here also to get this straight, how it can be done. And I'm pretty sure that the Data Science Society will do this perfectly, and especially guide young data scientists accordingly. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention, and once again, thank you.
We now heard something about academia. We will now switch into industry. But before that, just grab a drink, a full whatever. If there's nothing left, we can get